Welcome everyone. Based on feedback that I have received, I have decided to make a series of videos that will step you through the process of creating your own personal video library, where you'll be able to watch the movies and the TV shows and listen to the music that you have digitized, that you have ripped onto your hard drive. As you know, based on what I've said in class, to me this is an issue of ownership. Services like Netflix are great. However, movies and TV shows and whatever else they have are added and removed at seemingly random intervals. They aren't actually all that random, but if there's a TV series you were watching, for example, and you've gotten through 5 episodes, when you go to Netflix to watch the sixth, that may not be there anymore. That's not a knock against them, it's just the nature of the beast. That's the issue of the agreements that they have with distribution companies and with production companies, and if one of them runs out, then they simply can't carry that movie or that television show anymore. So the purpose of these videos will be to show you how to set up your own personal Netflix. And whatever you add to it will always be there. It will never go away. You own it. It's your service. All you'll ever really need to do is add to it. It's intuitive to do, but it is a process. It's not hard. There are just a lot of steps. And so the way I plan on doing this is in this first video, I'm going to talk about the process of ripping and naming the resultant file. I'll also talk about how you name television shows because they have their own specific naming conventions as they have seasons and episodes. In subsequent videos, I will talk about Plex, one of the programs that I use in order to serve videos across the network or across the internet, and XBMC, which is the program I use to watch my videos on a dedicated machine. Now, when you're going to rip a video, when you're going to rip a DVD or a Blu-ray, you have to determine what file format you'd like to use. For the purposes of this demonstration, we are going to be ripping videos into what's known as the Matroska format. That will mean your video files have an extension of MKV. There are others you can use. For example, some people like to use ISO files. Those can actually maintain DVD menus and all sorts of fun stuff. I don't use those. When I click on a movie, I just like the movie to start. I will address what I do with some of the bonus features that DVDs and Blu-rays contain and how I catalog those. But for our purposes, we won't be maintaining any menus. We won't be maintaining any, I don't know what to call it, any flash that a standard DVD has when you put it in the drive. Instead, we are simply going to rip the movie. We will also rip the bonus features, and we'll discuss what it is we do with all of that when it happens. So up on the screen here is a program called Make MKV, M-A-K-E, MKV. And you can download it from their site. It's a free program. And I like this one because it's able to rip Blu-rays as well as regular DVDs. You see, Blu-ray is a proprietary format. And so for programs to be able to rip Blu-rays, they need to charge you for that privilege. In fact, many of them will actually charge you an annual subscription because they have to continue to pay the royalties. Make MKV doesn't do that. Once in a while, it will tell you the program's out of date, and it says you have to enter a registration key or a product key or something like that in order to continue using the product. However, if you go to this website, you'll note that they have a beta key right there. If you select that beta key and then copy it, you can paste it right into the box that pops up in Make MKV when they tell you you need to register. And that will keep the program running. If we go back to Make MKV, in my drive, I have the Blu-ray of An American Werewolf in London. It did an initial scan, and you can see up here, it says the label is AM Werewolf G51 Jellyby. It's An American Werewolf in London. And what we're going to do is run an initial scan by clicking on this drive icon here, and Make MKV will determine what all the video files, the video segments are on this drive. And what we'll end up with are a bunch of video files. The main movie will be the largest video file, and all the bonus features will be smaller video files. So let's do that and see what we end up with. The process is starting. It does an initial pass. And this is what it gives me. You have to be careful here. First of all, you need to determine if you really want to keep all of these bonus features. I'm not going to do it for the purpose of this demonstration, but you need to know what it is you really want. If you click on one of the arrows for any of these, you'll see it has all of these subtitles: French, Spanish, German. If you're not going to be using them, I would recommend not keeping them because they take up space. And this can be a real problem with a disk that has a lot of options, that has a lot of bonus features like this one does, because you might have to go through every single one and click off all of these squares. Some disks have more bonus features than others. So I'm going to just click all of these off. And now we'll go back up to the top one here. You can see that this one is 28.5 gigabytes. This video file is way bigger than all the rest. That's how you know that it's the main file, it's the main movie. If we expand it by clicking on this arrow, MKV never selects the best audio track. I don't know why it does that. But for me, I have a surround sound system. I want the best audio track that's available, and so that's this one, but it's not checked. So I'm going to check that to be sure that I have it. I'm going to check off French. I will never watch this movie in French or German or Italian. Nothing against French or German or Italian. I just don't speak or understand them. So I don't keep them because they'll take up space. Here it says DTS Surround 5.1 in Spanish. I actually have a bunch of friends that speak Spanish, so for some reason I always keep the Spanish subtitles and the Spanish audio track. So I'm going to leave that. Now if we come down here, you can see it says subtitles, English, and then it says English forced only. Always, always keep forced subtitles for your main language. You don't need to keep them for French or Japanese or German if you don't speak those languages, but whatever your language is, you want to keep forced subtitles. And the reason is, if you are watching a movie in which people are speaking in another language, if you're watching some spy thriller and there are people speaking in Russian, or if you're watching The Hobbit and elves are speaking in Elvish or Elven or whatever else speak in, it will force English subtitles onto the screen regardless of whether you have subtitles selected or not. So you always want to be sure that you choose forced subtitles for whatever languages you're going to be watching the movie in. So again, I keep Spanish subtitles, but I won't be using French, I won't be using Japanese, I won't be using French again, not German or Italian, and so I'm going to click all of these off as I go down the list. This is a lot of subtitle languages, by the way. Usually you don't get this many. This has Portuguese, it has Dutch, it has Danish. A lot of times there will just be English, Spanish, and French, and that's all. So this is a very involved process, one that you don't normally have with most DVDs, at least as far as my experience has gone. Whoops, we'll leave English there. This is a whole lot of subtitles. Ooh, Spanish too. French, German, Italian, and Spanish. You also won't need this attachment because the media managers that we'll talk about in subsequent videos will take care of all that for you. If you look here, I have a folder on my desktop called Simpsons. It's only called that because my Simpsons DVDs were the first ones I ripped when I was setting up my library, so that's what it's called. But anytime I rip a movie, all the files that get ripped go into that folder first before I transfer them into the actual movie folder that I have, just so that I can review it and make sure that the rip went okay. So everything looks like it's ready to go. We're not going to be ripping any of the bonus features. I'll just do that later on. We have the best audio selected, we have the main movie selected, and then we click this button here that says Make MKV. That will rip the disk and put the MKV file into the Simpsons folder on my desktop. So here we go. So now the copy's complete. We have one title saved, which is just how we set it up before we did the rip. And as you can see, it took a little while for that to complete. It took around 20 minutes, and depending on the type of disc you have, whether it's a Blu-ray as opposed to a DVD, whether it has a lot of data on it, whether you are also ripping the bonus features, it can take a lot longer. So if you have a sizable DVD or Blu-ray collection, you're going to spend a lot of time looking at this screen. So it says copy complete, one title saved. We say OK. And then if we bring up this window here, I'll click on desktop and then Simpsons. There it is. An American Werewolf in London, T00.mkv. The name of this file doesn't matter. Sometimes when the rip is complete, it'll have a name that doesn't represent the actual movie. That's fine. What's important is that the folder it is in is named correctly. Now, just to be sure that everything appears at least to have worked out, I'm just going to double click on it. It will play. I use the VLC media player because it's able to play many different formats. So I'll double click on it. And there it is. So you can even see, if you notice the little lines here on the play bar, on the progress bar, those are chapters. It maintained the chapters when it did the rip. So if we move ahead, whoops, bad day, raining, good, good, good. All right, so everything looks good. It looks like it worked appropriately. Now, I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder An American Werewolf in London. That's what's really important when you're doing the naming. An American Werewolf in London. See, that will allow your media manager to determine what the actual movie really is. So I've made this new folder here, An American Werewolf in London. I'm going to put the video file into that folder, and then, if you can see down here, it says the new drive. I'm going to open up a window that has that new drive. And you can see here it has a folder called Videos, and in the Videos folder are all the movies I have. Some of them use this snake text with the underscore in between each word. It doesn't matter if you do that or if you have it like this. It doesn't really matter as long as the folder has the name of the movie. So we'll go back up there, and then, whoops, and then I'm going to drag this folder with the video we just created, the video file we just created, into this folder here. Now it's a big file, and it's transferring from one hard drive to another hard drive. And even though it's doing it within the same system, it's going to take it a little bit of time to complete. And now it's done. Now, if we double click on the videos folder and we skip down, there it is, An American Werewolf in London. There's the video file. And now it's ready to be read by your media manager and added to your library so you can watch it whenever you want. Now that's a topic for another video. However, I do want to make a couple of additional comments. I want to talk about the bonus features, and I want to talk about naming television shows. First, bonus features. You'll notice if we scroll down, I have this folder here called Bonus Features, and if I double click on it, you can see that it has folders that are all the bonus features for all the movies I have that I felt like I needed to keep for whatever reason. So here's Life of Pi bonus features. For better or for worse, when you rip the disc, you have to go through all of the video files other than the main movie that it creates and determine what those bonus features are and whether you'd like to keep them. For example, on the back of the Blu-ray case for An American Werewolf in London, the movie that we just ripped, I have it here in front of me, and it says the bonus features include I Walked with a Werewolf, which is the makeup artist Rick Baker talking about creating the movie, Beware the Moon, which is a retrospective documentary, a behind-the-scenes interview with director John Landis, makeup artist Rick Baker on An American Werewolf in London, casting of The Hand, outtakes, and so on. And so you'd have to watch for as long as you could each of the bonus features, each of the video files that were ripped, and give them an appropriate name. And that's what I did in this. I actually had to watch this and then determine it was a behind-the-scenes featurette, and I just called it Behind the Scenes. The reason I keep all of these bonus features in separate folders in a separate folder called Bonus Features is because whether you're using Plex or whether you're using XBMC, you can set them to ignore this folder. If you don't do that, it will see the folder bonus features and try to figure out what movie that is. And I guarantee you it will get it horribly, horribly wrong. It's not a movie, it's just bonus features. Now in XBMC, as we will see in another video, you can just select that folder and say ignore. Whatever's in here, just don't add it to my library. And then if you want to watch the bonus features, you have to navigate to them in the File Explorer like we've done here. With Plex, it's a different story. If we go back to the Simpsons folder where I originally ripped the video, you can see I have this text file here called .plexignore. If you double click on that, it says bonus features \**. That's all that this text file says, this .plexignore file says. And what it really means is ignore the bonus features folder and everything in it. So if we come back to our main videos folder where all our movies are and where the bonus features folder is, if we scroll all the way to the bottom, there's that plexignore file. You see that? And that means when Plex does its library updates, it will see this file and it will know not to count anything that's in the bonus features folder. It will ignore them all. Now let me add something about naming television shows. This is a little more involved. I keep my television shows over here on what I call the brand new drive because I'm clever that way. I have a separate folder called TV shows. You can't put it into your movies folder because then when you update your movies library, it will try to figure out what movies your TV shows are and you don't want it to do that. So over here I only have a couple of movies. I'm still using my other hard drive primarily. But if we click in TV shows, you can see there's a bunch of them here. They're all named according to what the TV show is called. So for The Simpsons, I have a folder called The Simpsons. For Futurama, I have a folder called Futurama. For The Twilight Zone, I have a folder called The Twilight Zone. The catch here is that you have to name them according to episode number and according to season. So if we click on The Simpsons as an example, I have subfolders called Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, Season 4. So you have to have those folders first. And then if you click in a particular season, you can see that there's this one, for example. It says SO3E01. That means Season 3, Episode 1. The next video file is Season 3, Episode 2. SO3E02. That means it's Season 3, Episode 2, and it's in the Season 3 folder. See how this is working? Now the next one here is SO3E03. That means Season 3, Episode 3. If we go to a different folder, let's say Season 7, we have the same thing. SO7E01, SO7E02, SO7E03. And so it knows which seasons and which episodes are what. And that allows it to download the appropriate data for each episode, when it aired, what its title is, what the plot is, and so on. But how do we find out which season and which episode are from which? Well, we do it using this website. This is the tvdb.com, and it maintains a database of all television shows and episodes that are out there. It's an open source project. If you have an account, you can contribute to it. But if we type in, for example, in the search box here, The Simpsons, whoops, only one in, The Simpsons, and hit enter, there it is. We click on that. And if we click on Season 7, let's say, these are all the seasons, but if we click on Season 7, these are all of the episodes. And if we click on a particular one, let's see, Sideshow Bob's Last Gleaming, it tells us what season it is, what episode it is, and this is the information that will be downloaded. You see, Plex and XBMC both use the TVDB as their data source. And so if you have everything properly labeled, then all the information, including the screenshots, the ratings, the synopsis, the year of release, who directed it, who wrote it, everything will be downloaded automatically. That's why you have to go through the trouble of naming all of these. There's a similar movie database that's used to download metadata for each of your movies. That's why you want everything named properly. That's really all there is to ripping a disk. We now have our movie file in the appropriately named folder in a video folder. The next step is getting your media manager to recognize it so that you can watch it. That's something we'll talk about in the next videos in the series, and I'll see you then.